The worst thing that gardeners need to watch for in southeastern Queensland will be the Ekka winds, the killer winds of winter. It's May, and in Brisbane that means autumn. I know that for two reasons. The first thing is this. This is my snake lily, or Amorphophallus bulbifer, and it's completely died down. It's a prize pot plant in summer. Definitely autumn and time to propagate it from these little bulbils here. It's also time to put in winter crops. Now, last week I was talking at the Gardening Australia Expo about things that gardeners need to prepare for in southeastern Queensland, and wind is one of the things we've got to watch out for. Killer winds, particularly around the end of winter and early spring, when the temperatures are low but starting to rise, humidity is down, and at the moment, several months in advance, soils are already depleted of moisture. So anything that you can do to protect your trees and garden from desiccating winds is really important right now. Last weekend I was giving gardeners advice about what to do in their gardens to get them through the dry spell of autumn and winter. And in particular I was trying to warn people about desiccating winds, because the soil is absolutely parched down to 2 metres and below in some places, and there's a very real risk we'll lose a lot of trees over winter. So anything that you can do to protect your garden from desiccation, save your trees, should be done now. These are some of my winter crops. I've got some Russian kale and some Portuguese cabbage. But planting them in winter is going to be very different this year in my garden. What I'm going to do to protect them against the winter winds is actually enclosing my vegetable gardens with the sugarcane bales, creating gardens within gardens. This will reduce the wind speed, and therefore I'm hoping to conserve moisture. And during this really critical period of establishing these seedlings in a new seed bed, I'm going to use 50% shade cloth as a cover. And that will also reduce wind speed and conserve moisture, and once they've started to establish, they'll be sun hardened, this can come away, and the crop hopefully will grow. At home I've got 8 vegetable beds, and I haven't got enough water to give everything the water I'd like to give them to get maximum growth. So I'm being efficient and I'm economising. I've given away one garden bed to make compost, because obviously summer rains will come, and I've got to make sure I've got plenty of compost to benefit from those soaking rains. I'm also setting aside one of the beds to grow some pawpaw, and I've chosen pawpaw because over the last year it's been one of my most productive fruits. Pineapple was another thing that performed really well with minimal water. So I've set aside 2 beds, one for fruit, one for composting. I've got one bed which I'm keeping really nice and moist, but I've scaled right back on what I'm growing. I'm growing nowhere near as many tomatoes as I'd like to do, half the cabbage and half of the kale that I intended to plant. But most importantly of all, I thought the simplest way to protect vegetable beds from dehydration was to surround them with bales of sugarcane. It's very cheap and plentifully available locally. So I've enclosed them. So I've now got 8 vegetable beds which look like mini gardens protected against the winds. Now, the reason I'm so concerned about the winds was that on Monday we had very hot, dry weather, and in the space of 3 hours a potato crop was lost almost completely. A third I don't think I'm going to get anything from at all. They collapsed, and that's because I'm watering so little. There's not much of a buffer between me and drought, and gardeners that are watering by hand will have less of a buffer than I've got.